Right bracket chapter 13. Conclusion. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. Matt. 24:21. Wealth and riches can be either a great blessing or a great cursing to mankind. In spite of an abundance of wealth in nearly every nation today, most of the inhabitants of the earth are poor. Generally speaking, the rich are selfish and the poor are envious of it. In either case they are covetous of riches. One of the problems with money, as Joseph Smith indicated, is the big fish eating up all the little fish. DHC 633. Our generation is not much different from the Nephites, Jaredites, Egyptians, Romans, and all other nations that have become wealthy. Riches may come quickly, but they may also disappear just as fast. Solomon understood this when he said, "For riches certainly make themselves wings, they fly away as an eagle toward heaven." Prov. 23:5. It is not always luck or chance, knowledge or experience, that provides or removes wealth. Moses said, "Thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that giveth thee power to get wealth." Jude 8:18. Riches have a tendency to turn a man's mind and heart away from God. Like Jeshurun, who waxed fat and then he forsook God which made him, and lightly esteemed the rock of his salvation. Jude 32:15. Of what value was his wealth, or of what value is anyone's wealth if they lose sight of the giver? Right bracket. In their search for riches, people should be aware that they are seeking for something that could be a curse to them instead of a blessing. Brigham Young warned, "How happy is such a person who cherishes no malice or anger, when compared with the man who is constantly laboring to amass gold and property, making this his only end and aim. How the devil will play with a man who so worships gain." JD 10:174. Most of the rich seldom think about God, so he often allows chaos, poverty, and misery to bring them back to their senses. If the world worships wealth, then they must pay the price. God has decreed that they will suffer the same consequences as the nations did at the time of Noah, for as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Matt. 24:37. All the prophets have looked to our time and have seen terrible judgments come upon the nations, such as famine, plagues, revolutions, destructions, and war. They have said that it would be so bad that very few would escape. Bishop Coyle also described the coming catastrophes, and saw that if this people did not have relief, very few of them would survive. He perhaps made hundreds of predictions, and all of them have or will come to pass according to his words, and not necessarily according to the way some have interpreted them. Why should this little farmer in Salem, Utah, be given the ability to make so many accurate predictions? Was it to convince people that the story of the mine is true? Was it to convince people that the end of the world is near and to prepare for it? If his greatest prophecy pertaining to that mountain of gold were to come true, what would it mean to you? Right bracket. Whether true or false, each of us should make a decision as to its origin and purpose. If the warnings of both ancient and more recent prophets come to pass in our generation, what do we have for protection and safety? If the prophesied mission of the relief mine becomes a reality, what will those people say who have scoffed and ridiculed the bishop for his dreams? Only time will tell. Right bracket. Appendices. 1. Patriarchal blessing of John H. Coyle. 2. Dan Valentine's newspaper column. 3. Les Goat's newspaper column. 4. Article on 1983 flood prophecy. 5. John Jordan's list of prophecies. 6. Statements by early church leaders. 7. Statements by later church leaders. 8. Deseret News excommunication notice. 9. Funeral announcement. 10. Salem prophecy, Doc. and Cov. Section 111. 11. Photographs of Bishop Coyle and the relief mine. Right bracket. Appendix 1. Patriarchal blessing of John H. Coyle. Leland, Utah County, Utah. July 15, 1899. A blessing by Patriarch Charles D. Evans upon the head of John Hiram Coyle, son of John Hiram and Adlinda Coyle, born Spanish Fork, Utah County, 14 August, 1864. Brother John Hiram, by virtue of my office as a patriarch, I lay my hands upon thy head and pronounce and seal upon thee a patriarchal blessing, as the Lord directs. Thou art of royal birth through the blood of Ephraim, thus art thou an heir to the blessings of the covenant, and the blood of thy royal lineage shall continue, for thy heirs shall possess the earth and the fullness thereof. Every blessing of eternal covenant shall be sealed upon thee, and thou shalt be as a mighty tree whose roots are deeply grounded in the earth, for thou shalt be unmoved in thy faith, fearless of the enemies of truth, and no weapon shall prevail against thee. By thy faith thou shalt have power over the elements, and by care of thy body thou shalt seize iron in her glory and aid in the building up of the center stake, for thou shalt be among the chosen and see the Lord's great temple, when the pillar of fire is upon it. The Lord will honor thee and transmit thy name to thy generations. Thy example shall be as a shining flame to light others in the path of truth. Thou shalt never want for food, nor raiment, nor for habitation. Thy name shall be recorded with the great, and thou shalt be a judge in Israel and draw the line in equity between thy brother. I seal upon thee the attribute of wisdom, thy words will be seasoned therewith and thy judgments sound. In the day of trial thou shalt be delivered, and every step in thy course shall lead thee nearer unto the Lord. For thou art one of the elect, and the Lord shall hem thee in by his power, and give thee control over the elements and the powers to seal up unto life and death. Thy genealogy will be revealed, and thou shalt labor in holy temples to perfect the work of thy dead. Thy latter days shall be glorious, and thou shalt stand to receive thy inheritance, and be a great high priest in thy closing years. Devils will be subject unto thee, and sickness depart by thy anointing. And I seal thee up unto the blessings of thrones and dominions of all heights and depths, in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Appendix 2. The Deseret News, Wednesday, August the 29th, 1973. Dan Valentine's Nothing Serious. Prophet. A Utah mining tycoon now deceased predicted inflation and the devaluation of the American dollar years ago. His name was John H. Coyle. He owned and operated the famous Dream Mine near Salem, Utah. When John Coyle wasn't mining, he was looking into the future. He was pretty good at it too. He predicted the 1929 stock market crash almost to the day. And he predicted inflation and the fall of the US dollar. He said the big financial upset would take place around presidential election time. He said that a US president would die, and immediately the US dollar would plunge and become worth about 20 cents. He said the nation would return to solid gold coinage, and do away with paper money. And he said there would be great inflation in the land, predicting that food would be so scarce it would take a bushel of gold to buy a bushel of wheat. Amid the economic chaos, Coyle predicted that the US government would fall apart. Both the Republican and Democratic parties would disintegrate, and there wouldn't be one man in the entire nation strong enough to hold the nation together. Actually, he said, there would be no government at all. And he also predicted that foreign countries would take advantage of the situation. Coyle predicted that Russia would eventually invade the United States, and the Red Armies would get as far as the Missouri River where the Yanks would stop 'em cold. At the same time, he predicted that China would invade the West Coast but they wouldn't get past the Sierra Nevada mountains. Looking ahead, Coyle predicted a lot of civil strife in the United States, class against class, race against race. And he said Russia would conquer all of Europe and most of Asia. And there would be a great world war in the Mideast over Palestine. Remember, these predictions were made by John Coyle years and years ago. He died an old man in 1949. But don't get the idea that Coyle was a complete pessimist. He predicted a lot of dire happenings in the future of the United States. But he held out a lot of hope, too. He said after the government collapsed, and after the invading Russians and Chinese were defeated, the United States would rally as a nation and become greater than ever. He predicted that many new large cities would grow in the West, and that the people would love each other and get along together, and there wouldn't be any rich class or any poor class, just happy people working together and living together happily and in peace. But, before this all happens, Coyle said there was going to be a great famine in the United States. And many people would starve to death. Well, let's hope John Coyle was wrong in his predictions. After all, he didn't say a single word about Watergate. Appendix 3. Sport banks on art relief. End of war by September 1 would boom athletics. It may be that our good friend Lyman S. Steve Wood holds the secret of the immediate future of sports. He bet me the dinners for our families that the war with the Japs would be over by September 1. It was my idea to fix the date January 1, but tub-hearted Lyman tossed in 4 months just by way of exuding a little extra confidence. This is a fair wager for me, even if I lose. Now that Mr. Wood has released the tension and suspense an end to VJ Day, the sports writers can go ahead and break the news announcing the suspension of travel restrictions. They can now tell what will happen about the World Series, how football teams will travel from 400 to 500 miles, and shed some light on the new American League basketball clubs, and how they will be able to make the circuit. It's as easy as that. Steve may be right. Nobody can tell when the Japs will quit or how long it will take to make them give up. If Mr. Wood wins his wager, the business will have to be done within the next 5 weeks. Our friend Steve is an eternal optimist, and therefore maybe he didn't stop to consider that Japan still holds a good part of China, all of Manchukuo, Singapore, a vast hunk of New Guinea, and all of her home islands. That is, what's left of them after recent bombing parties. In the event that forecaster Wood loses his wager, the World Series will be in doubt, except as a serviceman's feature in Manila. The football teams will have to travel in day coaches, a turn that will be of no great help to visiting clubs that come from long distances. It will still be our main task to get vast quantities of materials and immense manpower over our western travelways, on the way to the Pacific. Servicemen must have all the accommodations. But all this confusion, jamming of the travel lines, battling to get places and riding the hard seats, is soon to be over with. Everything is going to be sweetness and light for traveling football, baseball and basketball teams. Shortly after September 1. Steve Wood says so. Appendix 4. The Deseret News, Monday, June 13, 1983. The Public Forum. Tribune Reader Opinions. Prophecy. Utah has seemingly been protected by being the only state that never had a national disaster. So far this year, Governor Scott M. Matheson has declared 10 counties in Utah as disaster areas. These damages, totaling over $75 million, may yet go much higher. But these calamities were foreseen and described by the controversial Bishop John H. Coyle of the famous Dream Mine. 34 years after his death, Coyle's prophecies are still being fulfilled. The following statement was published in a book by the late Norman Pierce, called The Dream Mine Story. It looks like it won't be long now before we'll be having some of the big troubles we've been expecting. I saw in a dream the other night that muddy water would flow in the streets like rivers in almost every community from one end of the state to the other. When it comes, it's going to cause a lot of trouble for a lot of people around here. It will be the beginning of really big troubles. Since these disastrous events have been a part of prophecy, it may be wise for everyone to consider the reasons why. Ogden Kraut. Appendix 5. During the summer of 1985, John Jordan published in pamphlet form an extensive list of 102 of Bishop Coyle's prophecies, as he and others understood them to be. To save space here, some of these items have been slightly condensed, omitting Jordan's personal interpretations and comments. Bishop Coyle's prophecies of the last days, as recalled by others and compiled by John Jordan. 1. The overall purpose of the mine was too big for the people to understand, but towards the end they would begin to understand. 2. The church would have a garment mill. 3. Houses would be low and would look like chicken coops. 4. What looked like sheep camps would be at almost every home. 5. Trucks looking like boxcars would be running up and down the roads. 6. The church would build a 34-story office building in the heart of New York City. The building would not have totally paid for itself before the troubles occur and the mine comes in. 7. The United States would commence selling wheat to its greatest enemy. 8. The Republican elephant would be in power. At an election, it would sink to its knees, never to rise again. 9. Weather pattern changes would be seen to the far southwest. Drought would proceed northward year by year, increasing in intensity until reaching the valleys of Utah. At that time the troubles were to start in the valleys. The drought would then head east, increasing in intensity. 10. Gold would be legal in trade. 11. A mine takeover attempt would occur internal to the leadership. 12. Before the mine comes in, all books and records must be in order. The bishop warned that no brothers or relatives should serve on the board at the same time. 13. On his deathbed, the bishop called in John H. Coyle, 3, and said, "I don't know what they will have done with the money. I just don't know what they have done with the money." 14. Before the mine comes in, 2 board members or leaders will leave the work, and the rest will not be of much use to it. 15. Towards the end, a group will try to bring in the mine early, but will not succeed. It is best not to attempt to bring the mine in early because if it is done, the government will tax it away or take it over for its important strategic values. 16. Great value would not come from old Spanish workings. Those workings would be used as a flux. 17. A group trying to bring the mine in towards the end would not have the spirit of discernment to know what to do. 18. Utah copper will close towards the end. 19. Towards the end, Satan will try to stir up trouble for the mine in the valleys, but will not succeed. Then, he will come up on the mountain and try to stir up trouble with the people there and those in the valleys. 20. Dark clouds will hang over the mine and the valleys. People will be distrustful and will not talk to one another. Finally, when the clouds part and the sun shines, everyone will be happy and will converse with each other. 21. There will be a sifting of those worthy of the work. 22. Just before the end time, the mine will experience a short shutdown. 23. A gravel train operation will come to a halt incidental to the short shutdown. 24. Something will cause the church welfare program to be inadequate at the end. 25. Stock will sell for 10 cents per share. 26. At the end, things will happen so fast that a person will not be able to tell what is to occur first. 27. Finally, what few old stockholders are left will have to band together to reclaim the mine. 28. The financial condition of the mine will be so bad at the end that a white-haired man from the north will have to come to furnish the money needed to outfit the processing of black ore. 29. It will be possible after all stock is sold for a person contributing to the work of bringing the mine in to eventually get 2,500 shares of stock apiece. 30. The mine will not come in until 11 families can live in perfect unity and harmony. 31. The mine will not come in until 30 people meet fasting and praying for deliverance at the green spot. 32. But when at first the mine comes in, things will have been so difficult and desperate with so much trouble between people that stockholders will wonder if it was all worth it. 33. The US government will keep propping up the economy as if it were on stilts until finally it would suddenly collapse overnight. 34. Taxes will become oppressive and almost impossible to pay. 35. The mining industry will attempt to again become operational. But, before they get going, and the mines can do any good for the economy, the crash will come. 36. There will be a setting in order. First the mine, then the church, then the state, then the nation. They will be brought up short like a wild colt at the snubbing post. 37. The church is to be set in order just after an April conference. 38. The United States will experience increasing interest rates, which will finally reach 20% to 24% after a period of 10% to 14%. 39. Banks will commence taking over mortgage defaults until they own many properties, helping to add to depression. There will be plenty of money in the banks, but none to lend out. 40. There will be an overnight price crash. Wages and prices will be 20 cents on the dollar. 41. Depression will occur just before drought. 42. Depression will become so bad in the United States that service boys will be called home to keep money in the country. 43. Greenbacks will blow down the streets and will not be picked up because they will be worthless. 44. After the economic collapse, goods can be purchased for very little if a person has hard cash. 45. Gold will sell for over $100 per ounce. 46. The church will renew persecution towards the mine. However, the mine will increase in strength and unity, whereas the unity and strength of the church will decrease. 47. Troubles in the valleys for the church will commence following the passing of the 12th president of the church, Press, Kimball. 48. Near the time of the end, many of the general authorities will become quite old. Troubles will start when 3 leaders will die in close proximity to one another. The new replacements will not be able to hold the church together. 49. In the end there will be a great apostasy in the church. A rift in leadership will cause many members to leave. Something will happen to make members congregate in and around the churches and at various other locations to discuss and ponder the great disturbing changes occurring. This will mark the commencement of the time of problems for the church, as well as the time of apostasy. 50. The bishop told of an interview with the prophet Joseph in Salt Lake City. The two of them were seeking out the latter general authorities. The bishop asked Joseph what he was going to do. Joseph's answer was, "I'm going to release them, every last man jack one of them." A man jack is a mule that must be castrated or cut off to remove the unreconcilable stubbornness to godly direction. Joseph then stated they had their chance and failed. 51. At the end, the church will be happy to turn the welfare program operation over to the mine to stop recriminations against the leadership of the church. 52. The church will be in such a destitute financial condition that it will be happy to accept tithing from the stockholders when the mine comes in. 53. If the stockholders do not pay tithing on their dividends, rains would come causing a landslide that would seal the mine from them. 54. The Provo steel plant will close at the time of trouble. 55. The railroad rails will be rusty when the mine comes in. 56. There will be little or no electricity. Lanterns will be back in use. 57. Streetcars and buses will no longer be running in Salt Lake City. 58. When the drought comes, one will notice dry hot winds when the winter wheat is in the milk stage of kernel development. The first year of drought will reduce the winter wheat crop by 25%. The second year the wheat right bracket crop will be reduced by 50%. The third year the wheat crop will be reduced by 75% and will not be fit for anything but cattle feed. The mine must purchase its wheat from the second year's crop, i.e., within the year following the second year harvest and before the third year harvest. 59. Mud will flow down the streets of Spanish Fork, indicating the wickedness of the people. When groups of people start rifling the grocery stores of Spanish Fork, those stockholders living there should get out immediately and leave for the mine. Some were advised to come hiding from bush to bush along the canal bank, others elsewhere were to come the long way across the mountains to avoid pillage. 60. There should be enough unity and harmony to bring the mine in the second year of drought, if not, by the third year of drought. If there is not enough unity and harmony to bring it in by the third year of drought, the work will be taken away from the stockholders. Pray that the mine will come in the second year. Otherwise, there will be extreme suffering that winter. 61. Stockholders will be tested on the low values first. 62. The rich will grow richer and the poor poorer, until many will be blue in the face with hunger when the mine comes in. 63. There will be very little gasoline. Stockholders were advised to keep their tanks filled. 64. Towards the end, stockholders will be questioned as to their part in the mine and as to what they heard was said and had seen concerning its coming in. 65. The mine will come in following an unusually hard winter. There will be heavy snows and a late wet spring. After 2 weeks of planting time, heavy rains will pelt the seed out of the ground. Then, hot dry winds will start to dry everything up, including the remaining plants. 66. At a stockholders' meeting at the mine, 2 general authorities with the police will try to lay hands on the speaker as an imposter. The general authorities will be struck dead. Stockholders rushing to their aid will be told, "Halt. Let the dead take care of the dead." 67. The first ore will be black and will come off the top beyond number 1 and at a grassroots level. If it is winter, it will be brought down by bobsled. 68. The news of the first shipment of ore will go unnoticed, since coincidental with it will be the death of the president in office. 69. The stockholders will know by looking that the mine is being brought in properly when they see the mill dump turning black. 70. Taxes will be impossibly oppressive. But the government will collapse following the mine coming in, but before the next tax collection time. Tax is not to be taken out of the Lord's values. 71. The first dividends will be paid just before Christmas, just in time for stockholders to have a little something. It will be the 4th year of depression. 72. Foolish stockholders will buy recreational vehicles with dividend money. Wise stockholders will replace food storage before there is no more food to be had. 73. At the end, the church leaders will sit back and see what happens as the mine comes in and will not cause further trouble for stockholders. A large snake will come to the mine from the south. 74. Stockholders are not to hold grudges against those who have caused them trouble. Because, when the stockholders see what happens to the persecutors, the stockholders will pray day and night for their deliverance. 75. There will be a harsh winter at the end of which the maple or oak leaves will open like a mouse's ear. 76. The harsh winter will be followed by a mild open winter. 77. A stone wall will be built along the mine side of the canal during the mild winter. 78. The mine will become a city of refuge against roving bands. 79. Roving bands and marauders will not be a problem south of the High Line Canal. 80. The second shipment of ore, that from number 4 Finger, will be noticed when it gets into the news. People will come to the mine waving money, but there will be no stock to be sold. However, the mine will offer to feed the people. 81. Economic conditions will be so bad that people will say that the mine has come into production too late to do any good. However, that will not be the case, since work will commence in numerous areas of the mine at the same time following the second batch of ore. 82. The mine will come in when the federal government is in disarray. Some say that the mine will come in the late summer or fall. 83. When the mine comes in, there will be only 3 months to obtain needed goods from the East Coast, and 3 more months to obtain goods from Denver, 6 months total. After that, trucks will not be running. 84. Foreign problems will commence. 85. The leaders of the nation will be blown out of office as if by a whirlwind. They will hide fearing for their lives. 86. When the mine comes in, mine personnel will be able to have most any church position which they desire. Church authorities will seek after the companionship of mine people to attend conferences with them, so that the authorities will be listened to and not rejected. 87. There will be great bitterness towards the general authorities. The leaders will have to take to the pulpits to keep people from leaving the church. 88. The bishop's grandson, Lin, is to be president when the mine comes in. 89. When the mine comes in, the mountains will be covered with people looking for gold. You'll hardly be able to see the mountain for the people covering it. 90. It will be almost too late to get the grain when it is obtained. 91. The mine will also support stocking grain in Idaho. 92. A stair-step concrete grain bin will be built on the terraces provided to store wheat. Hardly will one section be completed that it will be filled while the next section is being built. 93. The wheat to fill the bins will be bought by the mine at about 50 cents per bushel. 94. There will be a large influx of people. Tents will cover the valley. People will feel fortunate if they have a chicken coop to sleep in. 95. A white city will be built in the shape of a horseshoe around the depression. 96. Travel will be unsafe in the valley north of the mine. 97. An earthquake will open and drain the winds. 98. It will be important to purchase the coinage mint machinery being sold as surplus by the Denver Mint at the end. The machinery must be brought to the mine within 6 months of the mine coming in. The machinery is to be set up at the mouth of Flat Canyon. 99. A clothing mill will also be established at the mouth of Flat Canyon, at the end of the Upper Prune Orchard Road. 100. The mine will purchase and reopen the Provo steel plant. 101. The local militia will attempt to gain control of the mine and its people. Mine money must be used for the right purposes or it will be taken away. 102. Some crops will again be grown the 6th year of the 7-year drought. Right bracket Appendix 6. Statements by early church leaders. Orson Pratt. Perhaps the Lord will open up mines containing gold and silver, or in some other way as seemeth to him best. Wealth will be poured into the laps of the latter-day saints, till they will scarcely know what to do with it. I will here again prophesy on the strength of former revelation that there are no people on the face of the whole globe, not even excepting London, Paris, New York, or any of the great mercantile cities of the globe, there are no people now upon the face of the earth, so rich as the latter-day saints will be in a few years to come. Having the millions, therefore they will purchase the land, build up cities, towns and villages, build a great capital city, at headquarters, in Jackson County, Missouri. JD 21:136. Wilford Woodruff. No doubt there is plenty of gold hid up in the recesses of those grand old mountains that surround the saints as a bulwark, but we hope it will remain sleeping in its quiet resting places, and never peep forth to gaze upon the face of day, until the saints have so developed themselves that its coming forth will be no bar to their progress. But that the gold of this world may be a servant unto them, and be used for those purposes for which the Lord designated it. When time comes that gold is necessary for the further extension of the kingdom, the Lord who has guided them hitherto, will show them when and how to obtain it. The saints of God will by and by possess all the gold that they can wisely use. It will give them much power among the wicked and great influence among nations, but they will not worship it, nor set their hearts upon it. Their public buildings will glitter with the right bracket precious metal, it will ornament their mansions and shine upon their tables, but its crowning beauty will be seen in the great temple of our God, where, in rich abundance and excellent workmanship, it will be displayed to beautify this sanctuary, and make the place of his feet glorious. Mill. Star 29:619. Charles W. Penrose. God expects us to be a different kind of people from those in the world. He does not expect us to be of the world, worldly. We have come here to be separate from the world, that we may purge ourselves from the spirit of Babylon. We must have different motives from the world, we must not have the same desires as the Gentiles, for their hearts are set upon the things of this life. They worship the wealth of the world. I hope to see the time when every latter-day saint will have plenty, and the time will come when God will give unto his people all the wealth they desire, but that will be when they know how to use it aright, and when their hearts are right and set upon the law of the Lord and upon the counsel of his will, and when they will be willing to use it for his glory and the blessing of their race. J.D. 21:52. Lorenzo Snow. Quoted by Brigham Young, Brother Lorenzo Snow says that the Lord will bless my brethren and sisters. He says that all the mules in the territory cannot haul away the gold that is concealed in these mountains. J.D. N 34-35. Brigham Young. When it is necessary that we should possess gold in great abundance, the Lord will show it to us in vision, and we shall not have to prospect and dig to find it, as the wicked have to do. The liberty of the saints is to possess power with God to open gold mines when we want gold. J.D. N 288. Right bracket the gold and the silver will be given to the saints, the riches of the world will be put in their possession, and they will be legal heirs. We are now passing through a day of trial, to determine whether we will prove worthy of all we may enjoy and possess, for it must be enjoyed and possessed without the spirit of covetousness. The fullness of the heavens and the earth, the mountains, the gold, and the precious things in them will all be devoted to those who are devoted to their God and their religion. J.D. 8:82. Some of the brethren think the saints ought not to be rich, and they have their various feelings. A great many brethren who have been in the States do not want to build fine houses or make many improvements here, for they are going back to their inheritances. You know there is a certain class who are fearful of getting the good things of this life, saying, the Lord has chosen the poor in wealth and rich in faith, etc. My feelings led out to obtain every good thing we can obtain as a people, the gold, the silver, the flocks and herds, and to building beautiful cities, to having good gardens, orchards, and vineyards, and to making the earth like the Garden of Eden. To gather all we can, honestly or dishonestly. No, but through laboring faithfully and honestly, and treasuring up these things and thanking the Lord for them. And if we have substance given us from the Lord, it should be devoted to building up his kingdom upon the earth. J.D. N 331-32. Right bracket Appendix 7. Statements by later church leaders. First Presidency, Joseph F. Smith, Anthony H. Lund, Charles W. Penrose 1913. The following note accompanied the reproduction of the warning voice in the August 16, 1913, issue of the Deseret News. Seemingly from this editorial note the warning was directed particularly at dream mines and their operators. Note: owing to the importance of the subject treated on in the letter of the First Presidency to the officers and members of the Church, which first appeared in the Deseret News of August 2, this year, it is reproduced today at the head of these columns. We trust the saints generally will profit by the advice given. And in order to bring it to the attention of all church members, it might be well to cause the letter to be read in ward meetings, or stake conferences or other similar gatherings of the people. The First Presidency warned the saints against investing in worthless mining schemes, or valueless stock, even if the promoters allege that they are guided by dreams and revelations. It is a timely warning. Almost everyone has heard stories of how such and such found a rich mine by following directions given in a dream, and many fondly hope for similar luck, but in most instances it will be found, on investigation, that such stories have little or no foundation in fact. They belong to the class of rumors which, like the wind, bloweth where it listeth, and thou hearest the sound thereof, but canst not tell whence it cometh and whither it goeth. No one should be guided by such rumors, but by reason enlightened by the Holy Spirit. It is a safe rule not to accept the counsel of anyone who is in any way antagonistic to those who have been duly appointed to lead and guide Israel. And it will be found that the promoters of dream mines and vision enterprises generally are of that class. They find fault and pass right bracket judgment without justification. But by that very fact they warn the saints to steer clear of them, just as the ringing, or whistling, boys during foggy weather call the attention to mariners to the presence of danger by the noise they make. A warning voice to the officers and members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. From the days of Hiram Page, Doc and Cov. Sec. 28, at different periods there have been manifestations from delusive spirits to members of the Church. Sometimes these have come to men and women who, because of transgression, became easy prey to the arch-deceiver. At other times people who pride themselves on their strict observance of the rules and ordinances and ceremonies of the Church are led astray by false spirits, who exercise an influence so imitative of that which proceeds from a divine source, that even these persons, who think they are the very elect, find it difficult to discern the essential difference. Satan himself has transformed himself to be apparently an angel of light. When visions, dreams, tongues, prophecy, impressions or any extraordinary gift or inspiration conveys something out of harmony with the accepted revelations of the Church, or contrary to the decisions of its constituted authorities, Latter-day Saints may know that it is not of God, no matter how plausible it may appear. Also they should understand that directions for the guidance of the Church will come, by revelation, through the head. All faithful members are entitled to the inspiration of the Holy Spirit for themselves, their families, and for those over whom they are appointed and ordained to preside. But anything at discord with that which comes from God through the head of the Church is not to be received as authoritative or reliable. In secular as well as spiritual affairs, saints may receive divine guidance and revelation affecting themselves, but this does not convey authority to direct others, and is not to be accepted when contrary to church covenants, doctrine or discipline, or to known facts, demonstrated truths, or good common sense. No person has the right to induce his fellow members of the Church to engage in speculations or take stock in ventures of any kind on the specious claim of divine revelation or vision or dream, especially when it is in opposition to the voice of recognized authority, local or general. The Lord's Church is a house of order. It is not governed by individual gifts or manifestations, but by the order and power of the holy priesthood, as sustained by the voice and vote of the Church in its appointed conferences. The history of the Church records many pretended revelations claimed by impostors or zealots who believed in the manifestations they sought to lead other persons to accept, and in every instance, disappointment, sorrow and disaster have resulted therefrom. Financial loss and sometimes utter ruin have followed. We feel it our duty to warn the Latter-day Saints against fake mining schemes, which have no warrant for success, beyond the professed spiritual manifestations of their projectors, and the influence gained over the excited minds of their victims. We caution the saints against investing money or property in shares of stock, which bring no profit to anyone, but those who issue and trade in them. Fanciful schemes to make money for the alleged purpose of redeeming Zion or providing means for the salvation of the dead or other seemingly worthy objects, should not deceive anyone acquainted with the order of the Church, and will result only in waste of time and labor, which might be devoted now to doing something tangible and worthy, and of record on earth and in heaven. Be not led by any spirit or influence that discredits established authority, contradicts true scientific principles and discoveries, or leads away from the direct revelations of God. For the government of the Church. The Holy Ghost does not contradict its own revealings. Truth is always harmonious with itself. Piety is often the cloak of error. The counsels of the Lord through the channel he has appointed will be followed with safety. Therefore, O ye Latter-day Saints, profit by these words of warning. Day. News, August the 2nd, 1913, also Imp. Era 16:1148-1149, September 1913. James E. Talmage, 1928. Several years ago, at the request of parties concerned, including some of the officials of the company operating the property, I made an examination of the ground and excavations thereon, and reported to the effect that I found the so-called mine wholly barren of ore, and that the geological conditions were such as to offer no indication or promise of ore of a commercial nature being discovered on the property. I have held the same opinion since the time of my examination, and hold it today. Furthermore, when I visited the property, I was told that the mining operations theretofore carried on and then in progress had been largely influenced and directed by alleged dreams and visions of supernatural character, received by certain of the company officials and other interested parties, by whom these statements were made known to me personally. I am now informed that claims of supernatural direction in operating this mine are still current, and that I am understood as having endorsed them. I absolutely disclaim having given the least credence to any such alleged manifestations, whether dream, vision or otherwise. To the contrary, immediately after making the examination and hearing the statements of persons claiming to have received supernatural aid in directing the work, and on many later occasions, I emphatically declared that I regarded the alleged manifestations as spurious, and that the setting forth of such claims, allegations or intimations as inducements to prospective purchasers of stock was wholly unjustifiable and fundamentally wrong. I reaffirm this now. Day. News, May 14, 1928, page 1 of Church News. Deseret News, Church reaffirms stand on coil DREAM mine 1932. The attitude of church officials concerning certain features in the mining operations of the Coil Mining Company at the Dream or Relief Mine east of Salem remains the same today as it was expressed in a statement issued in 1913. It was declared Monday at the church offices. The reaffirming of their position came in answer to persistent reports that have reached the general authorities that stories are being circulated alleging that the church has changed its position in regard to the Dream Mine. The erroneous reports are that Dr. James E. Talmage of the Council of the 12 is ready to apologize to the mine officials for his past statements concerning the mine, and that he will tell the officials of the mine to go ahead, and that the general authorities are opposing Elder Talmage in his stand on the Dream Mine, that they have called him to account for his statements made in public, that his church position is in jeopardy unless he apologizes to the mine officials, and that the general authorities are themselves ready to tell the mine officials to go ahead. Day. News, September 19, 1932, page 1. Editorial. Dream Mines 1946. Telephone inquiries are again coming in about the so-called Coil Dream Mine and reported sale of stock in that property. It is said that some persons of local prominence are again agitating the sale of stock in that mine, and in some instances have claimed to have received revelations that certain of their neighbors should buy this stock. It is also claimed in some instances, as it has been claimed in the past, that the church authorities are no longer opposed to the so-called supernatural basis upon which the mine is being operated, and some go so far as to quote Dr. James E. Talmage as saying that he admitted being mistaken in his earlier studies of the mine. Latter-day Saints should understand that at no time have church officials changed their attitude regarding this mine and its supernatural claims. On December 29, 1945, there was republished in the church section of the Deseret News a statement of the First Presidency of the Church, warning members of the Church away from schemes based on supernatural claims, by which persons hope to get gain. Said the Presidency, "We feel it our duty to warn the Latter-day Saints against mining schemes which have no warrant for success beyond the professed spiritual manifestations of their projectors and the influence gained over the excited minds of their victims. We caution the saints against investing money or property in shares of stock which bring no profit to anyone but those who issue and trade in them. Financial schemes to make money for the alleged purpose of redeeming Zion or providing means for the salvation of the dead or other seemingly worthy objects should not deceive anyone acquainted with the order of the Church." This statement was first prepared in the days of President Joseph F. Smith, and on December 29, 1945, was reiterated by the present First Presidency, who said on that date, "We commend the foregoing to the careful consideration of all members of the Church at this time, many of whom are the victims of alluring representations regarding mining and other investments. When salesmen for Dream Mine stock come and tell their neighbors they have been impressed by the Lord that the neighbors should buy some of this stock, let those neighbors beware and go and discuss the matter with their bishops and stake presidents. When claims are made that Dr. Talmage changed his mind about this mine, let all remember that such claims were made in the lifetime of Dr. Talmage, and in answer to them, he published in the Deseret News on May 14, 1928, a statement including the following. Several years ago, at the request of parties concerned, including some of the officials of the company operating this coil property, I made an examination of the ground and excavations thereon, and reported to the effect that I found the so-called mine wholly barren of ore, and that the geological condition was such as to offer no indications of the promise of ore discovery of commercial value on that property. I have held the same opinion since the time of my examination, and hold it today. In 1933, when the coal mine was facing difficulty with the State Securities Commission, Dr. Frederick J. Pack, another Utah geologist, was employed to make an examination of the mine and report to the Securities Commission, which at that time was testing charges of illegal sale of stock in the mine. Dr. Pack reported, as published Jan. 21, 1933, in Salt Lake City newspapers. I desire to state that in my judgment the coal mining property offers no encouragement whatsoever for the future. The _ORE' bodies recently discovered are shown by assays to be worthless. This is also true of the ore in the mill bins awaiting treatment. After giving a technical description of geological conditions at the mine site, Dr. Pack further stated in his report that he has seldom if ever seen a mining prospect that exhibited such a complete absence of mineralization. Throughout the entire property I am unable to find evidence of vein filling. At various times backers of this mine have reported the discovery of both gold and platinum, but their tests have failed under assay. However, the thing against which the authorities of the church warn the people is the claim of supernatural direction in this mine. All members of the church are urged to follow the advice of the general authorities of the church in this regard, and avoid the disappointment that has come to many who have preferred to believe in the so-called dreams and visions of men, seeking by supernatural means to operate mines. Day. News, September 7, 1946. Harold B. Lee, 1970. In the priesthood session of the 140th Annual Conference of the Church on April 4, 1970, President Harold B. Lee read the Church Statement of 1913 to reaffirm the official Church position. Appendix 8. Deseret News, the family newspaper. Salt Lake City, Utah, Friday evening, April 16, 1948. Coyle excommunicated. John H. Coyle, of Spanish Fork, Utah, was excommunicated from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints last night, on a charge of insubordination to the rules and authority of the Church. Action was taken by the Presidency and High Council of the Palmyra Stake, in a meeting held at the stake offices in Spanish Fork. Appendix 9. John H. Coyle dies at age 84, funeral held today. John Hiram Coyle, 84, native of Spanish Fork, died Tuesday at 9 a.m. in the Payson Hospital of ailments due to advanced age. He was born in Spanish Fork August 14, 1864, a son of John H. and Adlinda Hillman Coyle, early pioneers. He was educated in the early day schools here, and followed the occupations of farming and mining. He married Emily Holt, daughter of Peyton and Sarah Naomi Carr Holt, December 29, 1884, and to them were born 13 children. 9 grew to adulthood, and 7 are now surviving. Mr. Coyle filled a mission for the LDS Church in the southern states, and had served as bishop of the Leland Ward and as a bishop's counselor in Burley, Idaho. While chairman of war teaching in 2nd Ward, he made an enviable record, which has been unequaled since. He was active in civic affairs. He is survived by 3 sons and 4 daughters, Leroy Coyle and Merrill Coyle, Spanish Fork, Ross Coyle, Mrs. Evelyn Stout, Mrs. Adlinda Duke, Mrs. Emma Wanwood, Burley, Idaho, and Mrs. Lucille Waite, Pocatello, Idaho, 2 sisters, Mrs. Fidelia Davis and Mrs. Ellen Fillmore, Spanish Fork, 45 grandchildren and 57 great-grandchildren. Appendix 10. Section 111. Revelation given through Joseph Smith the prophet, at Salem, Massachusetts, August 6, 1836. HC 2:465-466. 1-5. The Lord looks to the temporal needs of his servants. 6-11. He will deal mercifully with Zion, and arrange all things for the good of his servants. 1. I, the Lord your God, am not displeased with your coming this journey, notwithstanding your follies. 2. I have much treasure in this city for you, for the benefit of Zion, and many people in this city, whom I will gather out in due time for the benefit of Zion, through your instrumentality. 3. Therefore, it is expedient that you should form acquaintance with men in this city, as you shall be led, and as it shall be given you. 4. And it shall come to pass in due time that I will give this city into your hands, that you shall have power over it, insomuch that they shall not discover your secret parts, and its wealth pertaining to gold and silver shall be yours. 5. Concern not yourselves about your debts, for I will give you power to pay them. 6. Concern not yourselves about Zion, for I will deal mercifully with her. 7. Tarry in this place, and in the regions round about. 8 And the place where it is my will that you should tarry, for the main, shall be signalized unto you by the peace and power of my Spirit, that shall flow unto you. 9 This place you may obtain by hire. And inquire diligently concerning the more ancient inhabitants and founders of this city. 10 For there are more treasures than one for you in this city. 11 Therefore, be ye as wise as serpents and yet without sin, and I will order all things for your good, as fast as ye are able to receive them. Amen. Right bracket Appendix 11. Photographs. Ore car at entrance to the relief mine. Right bracket Bishop John H. Coyle. Right bracket Bishop Coyle's house at the mine.